Well, first of all, let me say good afternoon to you all. I hope you're enjoying the event. My name is Paul Nicholls. I work for Crossroads Care in Coventry, and my main responsibility in Crossroads Care is training for what we term informal carers. We have somewhere in the region of 200 care staff work in Coventry and Rugby and the surrounding areas for Crossroads. But the carers I'm talking about, that I'm responsible for, are those carers who look after their husband, their wife, mum, dad, maybe even just a friend or a neighbour, and they do it without pay. They don't do it as a career. And personally, those are the people that I look after. They're my core responsibility. I'm going to talk to you about one aspect of caring. For me, there are two real aspects. You can split it down the middle. You've got the social services side, where you find all your social workers, and they're the people who are responsible for going out into the community and deciding on what support somebody might need to either look after someone, to enable someone to stay in their own home, because that is fundamentally what we're trying to do. Not everybody wants to go and live in a care home. And in fact, the country could not afford for everybody to live in a care home. Because people who care for someone in their own home, if they all stopped doing it tomorrow, it would cost this country more than the annual budget for the National Health Service itself. So you can see how important these people are who look after someone in their own home. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any wonderful props. And as I walked in here this morning, I saw a Vulcan bomber that was over in one of the other halls, and children were there climbing up into the cockpit and having their photograph taken. And I thought, if that doesn't inspire you to want to fly planes later on in your life, what wouldn't? And when I eventually found this place, and I saw my name outside, I knew I'd actually arrived after about half an hour of looking to the place that I was supposed to be. And when I walked in here, there was two dead bodies on here. I don't know whether anybody was here. One had been stabbed in the chest with a pair of scissors, and the other one had been stabbed in the chest with a knife. And there was a nice young lady stood on this stage where I am now, talking all about forensic science, and I was stood there looking and thinking, my God, this is like CSI Miami. And here am I, I've got to follow that with a bare stage, and I'm going to talk to people about caring in the community. I've explained the difference between the two different types of carers, and this event today is absolutely fantastic because we've got a lot of younger people, and I remember when I was younger, quite a long time ago, and I left school in 1972. This is the point where you're supposed to say he doesn't look that old, does he? Well, I don't see anybody saying it, so I guess I do. But when I left school, there was nothing like this. You know, you had 5 minutes with what they used to call a careers officer. And I went to see my careers officer, and I spent 5 minutes with him, and I walked out of there. The last thing he said to me was, "You're in cloud cuckoo land, Mr. Nichols. There is absolutely no chance of you ever becoming a rocket scientist. What does your dad do for a living?" And I said, "He works in the car industry." He said, he just nodded at me and said, "Well, that's probably your level." And so that's what I did. And just to tell you a little bit about myself, I worked from 1972 for 32 years in the car industry. I started work at Wrighton, just outside of Coventry. And for a very, very long time, I worked on the track. And has anybody ever seen a track? It really is a big long snake. They call it the snake. And a car passes you every about a minute, minute and a half, and you do exactly the same thing to exactly the same car, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And after a few years of doing that, I thought, there's got to be something better to do than this. So I started taking a few courses at college, I was the oldest one in my class. And eventually, I was given a managerial role as a supervisor. So no longer was I putting things on a car, I was actually supervising the people that were doing it. And I thought I'd been pretty successful here, because the next thing I know, I'm working in India. And I'm working in India for Peugeot, and I'm managing the paint shop that Peugeot had in India, just outside Bombay, which is now Mumbai. And I worked there for 3 years. And I can tell you now, my God, did I see some poverty. Did I see some people who could well have done with some social care of some sort. But as most of you probably know, Peugeot then closed. It did. And I look back and reflecting, and I did have a few job offers. One was just down the road here at Jaguar at Castle Bromwich. And I thought to myself, do I really, really want to go back into a factory? And at the time, unfortunately, my mother was taken seriously ill. She went into what they call a non-diabetic coma. No, sorry, a non-diagnosed diabetic coma. And she was in that coma for 3 weeks. And when she came out of hospital, she was she was bedridden really. She ended up losing her left leg up to her knee through gangrene, which was caused through the diabetes. And I used to go around and sit with her, and I used to see all these carers come in and look after my mother, and I thought, you know, there's something in this. There's something much more gratifying doing this sort of work than there is working in a car factory. There are some differences that I can tell you about, and I won't hide the fact that there is a slight difference in pay. In fact, it's about that much. Well, maybe not that much, but the job satisfaction, absolutely fantastic. So I was looking at a way that I could get into social care. And I was very fortunate that one day I was just whiffing through the paper at home, and I saw an advert for a program called Caring with Confidence. This was a government-funded program. It was to train what I was just going to say informal carers. Does anybody have a caring role that's in the audience today? Does anybody care for someone? You do? Did anybody ever train you how to do it? Did you ever have any training how to do it? You did? Sorry? You're a qualified nurse. You're working? Brilliant. So, the vast majority of people who end up being an informal carer never put their hands up, they never chose it as a vocation, and subsequently they feel lumbered, they don't know what to do. Many people who are elderly and frail need assistance in mobilising, and nobody's ever taught these carers how to do it. That is my job now. But I got into it through this Caring with Confidence program, where we were training in groups, isolated, informal carers. Excuse me. Well, I did that for about 12 months and thoroughly enjoyed it. And it really showed me the difference between working in an industry and actually working with people and seeing the difference in their faces. Because some of the people used to come in on that training course and their heads were down there like that. Very low self-esteem. They'd sit themselves down. They wouldn't want to look up. Really, really low. But after 6 sessions and 6 weeks of training, they'd be bubbling, walking out, smiling, laughing. They had rid themselves of that isolation that a lot of carers feel. And I could see the difference that I'd made to those people. And that really inspired me to want to do some more. Unfortunately, the funding for that was from the government, and they withdrew it when the government changed. So the whole project finished. But I was very fortunate that in Coventry there was a similar project starting. And the people who had got the grant to do it were Crossroads Care, it's who I work for now. And through word of mouth, the Chief Executive Officer, Penny, she actually invited me in for a chat, and I accepted her offer to actually run this training program. So I've been working for Crossroads Care now for about 2.5 years. And just a little bit of history, does anybody remember the program Crossroads? Just down the road from here. Well, people ask me, where does the name Crossroads come from? And it is actually named after that program, because if you remember in the program, the owner, Meg Richardson, she had a son, Tandy, who was in a wheelchair. And when she wanted to go gallivanting with her new boyfriend, she got carers in. And in rugby, there was a guy called Noel Crane. And Noel Crane, unfortunately, had a diving accident in Wales, and it left him paraplegic, and he had an elderly mother who was caring for him almost 24 hours a day. And he thought to himself, this is a fantastic idea. I'm going to get carers for my mum, to give my mum a break. And he researched it and researched it until the point that he found there was no such thing. So he wrote to Crossroads, to Reg Watson, who was producer of the programme, and he said, your storyline is an absolute load of rubbish. These carers are just not available. As a result of that, ATV, who produced the programme at the time, they gave £10,000 to start up the first Caring for Carers, to give carers respite. And that's how Crossroads came about. And there are now 76 Crossroads Cares in England and Wales, plus the ones in Scotland and Ireland. So what difference has it made to me, working in social care? I can't say that it's great fun all the while. It's very busy. It's getting busier. And some people say to me, you know, that, oh my God, there's so many people now requiring care. And it's true. And they require care in their own home. That is true. Because most people want to stay in their own home, as I said earlier. But I look on the positive side of it and think, well, there's a very good reason why a lot more people are requiring care and support. It's because people are living longer. It's as simple as that. The advances in medication, the advances in surgery, etc., mean that no longer, when somebody passes away at around about 55 or 60 years of age, do people say, well, it weren't a bad innings, was it? Because that's got up now into the 80s, when people say, oh, that's not a bad innings, is it? And so, yes, there are a lot more people requiring social care. So if you're thinking about a career in social care, whether you're just leaving school or whether you're thinking of a change of career like I had, there are a great deal of opportunities. And it's not just about people going into someone's home and supporting them in their own home. Someone has to arrange that. Someone has to manage it all. So what would you do? For young people, a lot of people are now offering apprenticeships. And Crossroads is no different. We're not doing it just yet, but we're really looking at how we can do it. Because, obviously, travelling is one aspect, where we require people to have their own transport and be able to drive, because it's going from job to job to job. You can't do it on the bus. You can't do it by foot. But one of the ways we're looking at is to actually, a younger person who's on an apprenticeship would actually work with one of our established staff, so that they'll just go around with the established staff when it comes to actually doing the practical side. A lot of colleges, universities, If you wanted to go into the other side of social care and become a social worker, there are courses out there that you can take. If you just wanted to become a carer and you wanted to support people in their own home, my only advice to you would be to check out and research the care agency that you're going to be working for, because I can only speak for Crossroads Care, but the training is absolutely fantastic. It is very thorough, and before you go out working on your own in the community, you will receive all the training that you will need. And that includes things like moving and handling, understanding dementia, managing medication, all the skills that you need to be able to go out into somebody's home in the community and take care of them and support them, you will have. A good care agency like Crossroads will support you through advanced learning. Many of our staff have taken CFC modules and are supported by Crossroads to do so. For people who have families, it can be very useful because the hours are very flexible. I know at Crossroads Care, a lot of our care staff are mothers and are only available from 9 till 3. And so they give us their availability and we work their work around that. So people can drop the kids off at school, go to work, be back to pick the kids up later. And quite often, when hubby gets home from work, they're able to work later hours, maybe from 6 till 10 or something like that. So it really can be very flexible in terms of the times. But it's not just about that. There's a lot of career progression. And I could give you a lot of examples from the managerial side at Crossroads. Our care coordinating manager, the lady that manages the coordination team, who are those people that set the job, set the person to it, the time allocation. It's very thorough, and she started off as a carer. She was going out supporting people in the community. Through advanced learning, further education, she is now the coordination manager. Our administration manager, the person that manages the team that does all the wages, all the invoicing, all that sort of thing. She was a carer out in the community. Crossroads Care, the Chief Executive Officer, is a lady called Penny Collard. Her understudy, because she's now only part-time, who is running the whole operation of the Coventry office and the Rugby office with about 20 office staff and over 200 care staff, is Salma. So where did Salma start? She was a carer. That's where she started. So there is opportunities if you want to progress your career. And of course, there are other administration roles. It's not just the people out in the community who are making a difference. It's the people in the office as well. Because without that support, they wouldn't be able to go out in the community and do what they do. So let me just finish by saying, I think a paint shop manager at the Jag will probably be on, I don't know, let's say about £40,000 a year. I would guess, at something like that. That's the kind of role I did at Peugeot for many years. In actual fact, my expertise is in actually painting cars. That's what I did. Would I want to go back to it? No, absolutely not. No way. I've taken job satisfaction over pay. And for me, that's really what it's all about. I want to see the difference I can make to people's lives. And we do make a difference to people's lives. And if you went into social care, you would see that for yourself, because you'd start doing it yourself. I want to see people with lower self-esteem lift their heads up and smile again. And if I could leave you with one thing, I did a course once on motivation. And part of that course was a guy called Hertzberg, who was a philosopher many, many years ago, and he wrote a theory on motivation. And when I first saw this theory, it said that it listed all these things, how to motivate your staff. And I looked at it and I thought, where's money? Money wasn't part of it. And I thought, well, you know, what motivates me to get out of bed in the morning and come to work? And the first thing that came into my head was money, and it wasn't on the list. Because Hertzberg said that money isn't a motivating factor. And as soon as this teacher, this professor told me that, I thought, nah, this bloke's an idiot. You know, the only reason anybody gets out of bed in the morning is for money. So I never believed it. But although I still think about it, because it stuck with me for a long time, I still think about it and think, I don't actually agree with him 100%. Because if money wasn't involved in it somewhere along the line, then I wouldn't be able to pay my rent, my mortgage, or feed myself, or run my car, or whatever. So I do think that money is slightly a part of it. So although I don't fully agree with it 100%, I now actually understand what he was on about. And the reason I understand what he was on about was because I've now worked in social care for about 3.5 years. And money isn't everything. It's been very nice speaking to you today. I hope that I possibly gave you a few things to think about possibly going into social care. Believe me, you will feel much better about yourself when you sit down having your dinner at night, having had a day in social care than a day in a car factory. That I can guarantee you. So thank you very much for listening to me. Has anybody got any questions? Yes. Can you?
How old was you when you went into social care?
Well, I left school in 1972.
But you said you
Which
worked
makes
in the
me
car factory.
56. I know I don't look it,
No, you don't.
but it's true. I was about 52 when I went into social care.
Well, I'm 48 now. As yourself, I'm a trained nurse, but I did come out of it.
Sorry?
I'm a trained nurse, but I did come out of it. But I'm at a bit of a loose end now, and I'm looking for something else related to the care profession.
Whereabouts do you live?
Me, I live in Birmingham, over this side.
You live in Birmingham. I mean, I can tell you that I did mention before there are 76 Crossroads Cares in England and Wales, and one of them is in Birmingham. The problem with Crossroads Care is that although all the policies for the whole of England and Wales remain the same, to maintain a high standard of care, a high standard of service in anything they do. I can speak a lot about Coventry Crossroads. I can tell you that Birmingham Crossroads will have those same level of service, but it's very dependent on the local authority as to what services they offer. So they all vary a little bit.
I've had a few care jobs, but I was extremely disappointed with the standards. And when I raised the standards, that tried to silence me, and as a result,
I did say earlier that one piece of advice I had for people would be to research the care agency you're working for. I can tell you now that you will not have that problem with Crossroads. You wouldn't have it.
I'm a perfectionist when it comes to giving care.
And so are we.
You have to be.
And so are we. If you look, Sorry? Yeah. But if you want to talk to me afterwards, I'll be over in the corner here somewhere.
Definitely.
We'll have a chat and I'll be able to tell you how to go about it.
Can we give Paul Nicholls a round of applause, please?
Thank you very much.